What is up everyone, and welcome back to some more F1 23 My Team Career Mode, and we are here for round number 8 of Season 5 of our Jaguar Racing career, and we are riding a high coming off the back of our first victory in Monaco. And I actually opened my mail for a second there because I forgot that there's a glitch where it shows that you've got mail even if you don't, if you've already opened the mail, which I did prior to the video. And in this video we are going to be racing around Spain with a brand new rival in George Russell, the Red Bull driver. He is currently, I believe, 3rd or 4th in the Drivers' Championship, so he will be a tough customer to try and beat. And not only that, there's also a retirement announcement from Carlos Sainz, which is a little bit shocking because he would not be that old by this point, only sort of early 30s, I believe. So, yeah, a little bit of a surprise there from Carlos Sainz that he is retiring from the sport at the end of the season. That announcement actually comes on the weekend of his home race here, which incidentally is also the team's 100th race. Now I know what you're thinking, but this is video number 103, and yes, you'd be correct. We do the recap videos at the end of every season, and now I know what you're thinking. Well, there's been 4 seasons, so how is video number 103 the 100th race? And that is because, of course, if you were watching back in Season 1, you may remember that we did have to miss out including one of the races in a video because the footage corrupted. That was the Italian Grand Prix from Season 1 that unfortunately we only have the highlights of that video. That's the only evidence that race ever took place. But yeah, we currently sit 5th in the Drivers' Championship and 3rd in the Constructors' Championship, so we're looking pretty good on those terms. And yeah, like I said, this is the team's 100th race, so I'm hoping we can have a special one here to celebrate. Now, I was actually thinking about doing a 100% distance race, but I've decided against doing that because I just think there would be more dead air than anything else. You know, like there would just be massive gaps between sort of moments, and the video would just be overly long for no reason. So I've opted instead to just simply do a 50% race like I usually do, and hopefully we can make it an interesting one and a good result to celebrate our 100th race as a team in Formula 1. Hopefully myself and Jack Doohan can both get well up the order, maybe both onto the podium. That would be nice to see. This race, like I said, it's a little bit of a 50-50 for me usually. I sometimes do quite well around here, sometimes I feel like I'm off the pace quite significantly, but certainly if the pace in practice was anything to go by, I think we're in for a fairly decent weekend. We were right up there on the soft compound tyres. We were 1/100th of a second behind Charles Leclerc, and I'm hoping that we can ride that high throughout the weekend to hopefully put in a good performance here in qualifying as well. But we will see what we can do, as yeah, Carlos Sainz will be retiring from the sport at the end of this weekend. It's a little bit frustrating actually for me, because literally the last couple of races I was thinking to myself, maybe I should sign him for next season if Jack Doohan continues to underperform. But I guess that's no longer an option, so I'm going to have to think that one through over again. But we will, I'm sure, come to a decision that benefits us, whatever we end up doing. A 109.7 was our first flying lap on a fresh set of soft compound tyres, and now we are going to do another run on a fresh set of soft compound tyres. Not that we would have really needed to, because we were all the way up in P2 at the end of the session, but as we round the final corner, we improve to a 109.4, and that's good enough to see us through. Of course, in P1 we improve ahead of Alex Albon, and we were the fastest time in first qualifying. So let's see if we can keep that up for Q2 and Q3 as well. Jack Doohan all the way down in P13. I'm hoping that he'll be able to improve a little bit over the course of the next couple of sessions, because that is not really good enough for Doohan. No real shocks here. I guess the main talking point, maybe Liam Lawson has gone from the podium to being eliminated in Q1, although that's not that much of a surprise. The podium was definitely the more shocking outcome. And then Sargent, Stroll, De Vries, Fittipaldi and Joe were also eliminated here in Q1. So yeah, no real surprises, but I'm sure that Lawson would have been hoping to build off of what was his best result in Formula 1 to date, a P3 finish in Monaco. Yeah, he unfortunately could not make it out of Q1 here in Spain. Piastri gets out of the way for us there as we finish a run on used soft compound tyres, and it's a 109.7 again actually, so proof that even on the used tyres we actually had pretty good pace around here. We go fastest initially, we do get pushed down to P5 by the end of the session. And actually, it's a little bit overcast, which I wasn't expecting. You know, the team said it was going to stay dry for the entirety of qualifying, and it's looking a little bit dark out. But you know, I'm optimistic it'll stay dry. If they said it's going to be dry, I'm optimistic. I'll trust in the team's ability to read the weather forecasts. And we go a little bit wide there, invalidate the lap, but it doesn't really matter. It actually, incidentally, would have been fast enough to put us P1 had that not been invalidated there. But it's still good enough to see us through to Q3 in P5, and we still seem like the fastest driver on this weekend. Meanwhile, Lando Norris has been eliminated here. Jack Doohan beats him out by 0.03 of a second. Yes, Lando Norris joins Pierre Gasly, Oscar Piastri, Tsunoda, Ocon and Hülkenberg in the drop zone there. So actually Piastri as well, a little bit of a surprise. And yeah, I'm not sure how that's going to pan out. But I am sure that we will see Norris and Piastri at least attempt to make their way back into the points as the race progresses tomorrow. I will be very surprised if we see the two of them completely out of the points. But it does present a very interesting opportunity for me to hopefully try and close up some more ground to Lando Norris in the Drivers' Championship, because we're still a good 30-something points behind him. And well, there's still a long way to go in the championship, but every point matters, even at this early stage in the season, even round 8 of 23, it still matters. Now, it actually started raining in qualifying, which kind of really ruined things for me, because I went out on a set of used softs initially, and by the time I went out on fresh softs, the track was too wet to improve. So our best time was a 1:10.0, and it was only good enough for P3, which was very, very disappointing considering I had hyped up getting pole all weekend.
With qualifying finished, it's time to remind ourselves of our top 3, Magnussen, Russell and Robinson. Goodbye for now then, but we are really just getting started. Make sure you join us again for Lights Out tomorrow.
So it is actually my former teammate Kevin Magnussen grabbing pole position here, and my rival George Russell getting P2. But I've qualified P3 there, Doohan in P5, and my closest rivals are all behind me in terms of the championship order. Norris, Albon, all of these guys are starting behind me, which is nice to see. And we will see whether we can hold on to that and hopefully finish ahead of them after 33 laps of the Spanish Grand Prix as we get into the race.
Max Verstappen's first win for Red Bull on debut here. One of the great dramatic days in Formula One after the clash on the first lap of Hamilton and Rosberg. The entire crowd at turn 7 on their feet, cheering. An extraordinary race. It's always a treat to come back here for the Spanish Grand Prix. The circuit of Barcelona-Catalunya runs to 2.9 miles. It's a heady mix of high and low speed corners. Look out for the high downforce arc of turn 3, the 2 DRS zones, and the chicane at turns 14 and 15. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Kevin Magnussen lines up on pole position, just ahead of George Russell, who starts this event from P2. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Robinson, Leclerc, Albon, Perez, Sainz, Hauger, Verstappen, Doohan, Norris, Gasly, Oscar Piastri, Tsunoda, Ocon, Hülkenberg, Liam Lawson, Sargent, Stroll, De Vries, Fittipaldi and Zhou Guanyu. Now, it's almost time for Lights Out, so let's go down to the track. It's just about time to go to the track for the beginning of the race, but before we do, Natalie Pinkham, what types of strategy do you think we can expect going into today's race?
Clearly, every car can't be as competitive as the next. Some are going to have a clear advantage over the opposition. So it's those teams that can think outside the box in terms of strategy that will come out on top today. I hope they do.
OK, we've got that relief of having points on the board finally, so let's keep that form up and get another top 10 finish today, please.
Obviously riding the high of the win in the last race, will we be able to make it 2 wins in 2 races here today in Spain? It will be, you know, I wouldn't bet against myself necessarily, because I do definitely feel like we do possess the car and the potential around this track to deliver a P1 finish, but it will be quite difficult to do. Obviously, we've got Magnussen and Russell starting behind us, and then there are a number of cars starting, did I say behind us? I meant ahead of us, and then there are a number of cars starting behind us as well. who are going to have the soft compound tyres that, you know, maybe could spring a surprise strategically, and that for that reason we need to make sure that we are aware of what every driver around us is doing at every stage of the race. I am planning on boxing a couple laps earlier than most of the medium compound runners. That should hopefully help me cover off any soft compound runners, but if Albon does get ahead of us during this race, then we are going to have to try and re-overtake him on pure pace. We're not going to have an opportunity to do that on strategy, but we will see what we can do as the lights come on and the lights go out. And we've gotten away well compared to Russell, certainly, and perhaps a little bit better than Magnussen here as well. And it looks like on the run down to turn 1, we're going to be leading the Spanish Grand Prix, but Kevin Magnussen is coming back at us around the outside. Who's going to win out? Will it be myself? Will it be my former teammate? It seems like it was just about myself, and Kevin Magnussen has to settle into P2 here. He will be disappointed to have dropped off the top spot, having qualified on pole for the first time in, I think, ever, actually. I can't remember another time that he's got pole. I know that he definitely got that win in the French Grand Prix in Season 2, what would be the equivalent of the 2024 season, actually. So, who knows? Maybe Kevin Magnussen will be on for a win in the Haas in this real-life season. But as things stand at the moment, is myself from Magnussen, and then Alex Albon has had a very good start on those soft compound tyres. He's already up to P3, and, you know, I wouldn't be surprised to see him try and make a challenge for the lead on those superior tyres. But for now, I'm just going to try and do everything I can to break away from Kevin Magnussen and try and extend my advantage out in front, much like I did in Monaco. I was able to have a 10-second gap by the time the pit stop phase rolled around. I think it's unlikely that that will happen in this race, just simply for the fact that that was in large part due to the fact that Hauger had some damage and was holding up the cars behind him, struggling to overtake around a difficult circuit like Monaco. But it seems like Magnussen's actually going to go for a bit of a move back on me, but he can't quite make it happen on this occasion, so we hold on to P1. Magnussen stays in P2, and it's going to be very interesting to see how this race unfolds. Coming to the end of lap 2 now, start of lap 3, we get the fastest lap, 1:12.2, and it seems like nobody's going to take that one away from me for the time being. We are the fastest man on track, but Albon certainly is looking to try and make his way up into P2, and it seems like he's done it, but it has come at the expense of a big gap towards me, so now he's not going to have that DRS, and maybe Magnussen will be able to mount a challenge to get straight back past him. Who can say? There are 5 tenths separating the two of them, 6 tenths now, and maybe that's not quite close enough for Magnussen to even use the DRS to get back ahead of Albon. But it does mean that Albon won't have the DRS on me, even coming down the main straight here on lap 4. And yeah, that's good for us, because it means that we will be able to hold on to the lead at least for a few more laps before eventually on lap 6 Albon does get within DRS range and makes the overtake up into P1, defends to the inside, and we're going to try and dive back around the outside of him if we can, and we do just that. So Alex Albon making the overtake momentarily. He was leading the Grand Prix for all of about 5 seconds, and in the end it is us holding on to that P1 position. But I'm sure that's not the last we will see of Alex Albon as the race unfolds. Here we go now on lap 8. He's going to go to the outside this time. We're going to try and tuck into the slipstream, but Alex Albon unfazed. And we've actually made a bit of a mistake here at turn 1, and that has allowed Alex Albon to break away from us quite significantly. And now we're coming under pressure from Kevin Magnussen here. Is he going to go for a move around the outside here as we come on the run to turn 4? I think he is, but having the inside line there prevails, and Kevin Magnussen is going to have to hold on to P3 for the time being and wait and bide his time and see if he can make his way back up into P2 and maybe set after Alex Albon in the lead of the race. Kevin Magnussen here going for that move for P2 now. We're going to try and push him to the outside once again if we can, but by the time we get to the braking zone he's fully on the inside. He doesn't have to worry about us anymore, and yeah, Kevin Magnussen making his way into P2, back towards the lead of the race where he started, of course, and we are back where we started as well, down in P3. But as we get on to lap 12 now, we have managed to stay with them, although my rival George Russell, thinking about going for a move up the inside at turn 10, has to back out of it in the end, and we are going to hold on to P3, stay on the podium for the time being. But it's certainly looking like we're coming under a lot of pressure here. I just need to try and make it to my pit lap if I can. Lap 15, of course, is that magic lap where hopefully everything will be alright. And yeah, we didn't really come under too much pressure from Russell after that point. Magnussen and Albon did start to break away a little bit, but as we come into the pit lane, it is Albon coming in as well off those soft compound tyres. Meanwhile, actually a few of the soft compound runners had already boxed at this stage. Drivers like Norris and Piastri and people like that had already come into the pit lane. So we have to be aware of those guys, because if we're not careful, one of them could potentially have sprung some kind of undercut or something like that. Albon very close in front of me, but here comes Lando Norris making his way into what could prove to be the net lead of the race. He's overtaken Albon, who was leading the race prior to pitting. Magnussen, of course, was right up there as well, so it's going to be very interesting where Magnussen comes out in relation to everyone else. Of course, Norris on the mediums, Albon on the mediums, and Piastri on the mediums as well. Meanwhile, I'm here on the hards, so yeah, I don't know where we're going to be in relation to everyone else. Piastri looks like he's potentially closing me down and making a move for what could prove to be the final spot on the podium here. Don't forget, he started P13 in this race. Even with Jack Doohan taking a 5-place penalty, he was unaffected by that. That's how far down Piastri was starting. And yeah, it is very, very surprising that Norris and Piastri have made their way significantly up the order from starting outside the top 10. Meanwhile, Magnussen now, we've undercut him, and so has Lando Norris. Lando Norris is in the net lead of the race. There's still a few people yet to pit. There's a Red Bull, there's an Aston Martin, and there is, of course, Jack Doohan, my teammate, as well. But the majority of cars having pitted means that Lando Norris, once those guys pit, has taken the lead of the race. And as we move on to lap 22 now, we're coming under pressure from Oscar Piastri. Once again, he's going to try and go up the inside here, but having the outside at turn 1 just proves to be the superior strategy as Max Verstappen sets the fastest lap of the race. And, well, maybe we could be seeing him mounting a bit of a challenge coming to the end of the race as well. Norris and Albon battling away there for the lead of the race. Will that enable me to get into touch with those guys? We will have to wait and see whether that materialises or not. As we make our way to lap 25, the gap has certainly come down, but I think it's due to the fact that Albon has slightly superior pace over Norris. Norris's tyres, of course, a little bit older than Albon's. I think Norris might have pitted 1 or 2 laps earlier than the rest of us, and maybe Piastri as well. Decided to go on the mediums to the end of the race. Whether that proves to be the correct strategy or not, we'll have to wait and see, because I mean, it certainly seems like he's made up quite a few positions, but will those tyres start to fall off a cliff? I don't know. I certainly feel like we're catching Norris. I don't know about Alex Albon, but I think P2 could definitely still be on the cards for us. Whether we can still get P1 or not, I think really depends on whether those mediums last the entire race for Alex Albon or not. But I'm going to give it everything. And as we make our way onto lap 29, the hard-charging Max Verstappen, who took the fastest lap of the race earlier on, will not see the checkered flag. He is out of the Spanish Grand Prix, and it is just disappointment after another disappointment for Max Verstappen at the moment, as he really just can't find any kind of form in that Aston Martin. But enough about him for the time being. Lando Norris defends to the inside, and by the time we get to the corner, we're a full car lengths ahead, and we are up into P2, and now we're going to see if we can set off and chase after Alex Albon. 1.6 seconds is the gap, and we will see whether we can make that gap up. By the time we get to the final lap, the gap is very, very similar. It's still 1.5 seconds to Albon in front. I definitely felt like we were catching him a little bit, but ultimately the gap was only changing by maybe a tenth or so every lap. It wasn't a significant enough amount that I felt like we could really mount a challenge for P1 here, and I think we're going to have to settle in for P2 unless Albon has some kind of critical mistake, which I think we're just a little bit too far back to make him really feel the pressure here. So as we come into the final sector now of the Spanish Grand Prix, I think it's going to be P2 that we're going to have to settle for. But it's been a pretty strong race from us, you know, compared to a lot of the races that we've had prior in this season where we just felt like we went backwards. We actually managed to hold our own in this race. We managed to keep pace with the front runners as well. It wasn't like I was defending like crazy to hold on to my position. I actually felt like I had decent pace in the back of the car, and we are going to round the final corner to take P2. The checkered flag for Albon there. He sees it first, gets the victory, but yeah, we are finding a little bit of form in this season at last. We've gone from first in Monaco, second in Spain, and next up is Canada as well, the site of my first win. Hopefully that one will be a good race for us as well.
A real team effort then, which has paid off in spades. A great victory here at the Spanish Grand Prix. So, Natalie, what made the difference out there today?
I feel consistency was probably the key today. There's being quick, and then there's being quick lap after lap after lap. If you can do that, you can capitalise on other people's errors without making many of your own. And that's an approach that can push you a long way up the field.
Mercedes are on top form once again after an excellent race weekend. It's great to see them up on that podium once again.
Alex Albon will be very delighted with this result. It means that he will close the gap to his teammate in the Drivers' Championship, prove that he's more than just a number 2 driver against his World Championship winning teammate in Lando Norris. I have closed the gap by just 3 points to Lando Norris on this occasion, but like I said, every point matters. If I did that in every race to the end of the season, I would be the world champion, provided that, Alex Albon and other drivers didn't get themselves into the mix. So yeah, P2, happy with that, happy to beat Lando Norris, and hoping that I can continue closing the gap to the top of the field as the next races come and go.
So let's have a quick look at how the drivers' standings have changed. It's a good result for Lando Norris, who moves further ahead at the top of the table. Let's focus on driver of the day, Natalie Pinkham. Come on, who do you pick?
It's an interesting one today. On balance, I think I have to call out Alex Albon. A really strong drive for him today, and one that he and his team should be very proud of.
It's time to check out the constructors' standings. Mercedes continue to extend their lead. There was also a strong showing from the McLaren team today as they make their way up the standings. Been an absolutely wild weekend of Formula One action. I can't wait to see what's next.
Well, we have closed the gap to Lando Norris to just 34 points now as we ascend to P4 in the Drivers' Championship, P2 in the Constructors' Championship, and it's looking like Mercedes might be completely unbeatable unless I manage to really start getting a run of form together, and we also might need Jack Doohan to start getting a few better results as well. Only P11 here in the Spanish Grand Prix. It's not quite as good as I was hoping for from Jack Doohan. I'm really disappointed with him this season so far in the first 8 races, I have to say. He had that sprint victory, of course, but other than that, I'm not sure he's even stood on the podium so far this season. So for someone who was getting podium after podium after podium in the McLaren, and we've got basically maxed out facilities as far as driver and personnel are concerned, I cannot fathom why Jack Doohan is not doing better in this Jaguar. It's really perplexing to me, and I can only hope that he improves soon, because this is frankly just not acceptable from Jack Doohan. We signed him to win races like he did on his debut in that McLaren, but that was really as good as it's got for him so far, and I was at least hoping that he would be a consistent podium fixture, if nothing more, and he has not managed it for our team so far in the first 8 races of the season. Even at his home race in Melbourne, I think he only got P4. So I just really need to see an improvement from him. I'm pretty confident I'll continue with him in the second half of the season, but I want him to start picking things up, hopefully finding a bit of focus. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe he's down on focus or something like that. I don't really know, but one thing's for certain, it can't continue like this, because we're looking to challenge for a Constructors' Championship title this season. I thought, if not Magnussen, I thought maybe Doohan would be the driver to do it with. But maybe the truth is I just have to go absolutely balls to the wall next season and sign someone really unprecedented. Maybe I have to go with a world champion. Maybe it has to be someone like George Russell, or even, and I can't believe I'm saying this, my biggest rival so far in Formula One, Lando Norris, the driver who beat me to the World Championship in Season 4, and looks like he might be my biggest contender for the championship in Season 5 here as well. Maybe he has to be the one to guide us to Constructors' glory, even if it does come at the cost of me losing out on a Drivers' Championship. Although maybe it will invite closer and more interesting racing between the two of us, who can say? All I know is that when you typically have 2 championship rivals at a Formula One team together, sparks can fly. You will have remembered instances of Prost and Senna. Do I think that my rivalry with Lando Norris is quite as iconic as that yet? No, but who knows? Maybe if we end up at the same team, maybe it just well could be. So like I said, next up is the Canadian Grand Prix. It was where I got my first race win all the way back in Season 2, and I am hoping that we can get a good result there again. But that is going to be it for this video. So if you enjoyed, please make sure you like and subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.